Today, I'm with Richard Gilmore, the MD of Fred Perry. Richard, it's a pleasure to have you on. You've had a chance to sort of see our other experts talk around the European Union UK free trade deal, sort of the economic impact of coronavirus and climate change. And obviously, climate change is going to probably have more and more of an impact on business going forward. And it's quite interesting to see that angle. The reason we've brought you on is it's easy for us to sort of bring up these big external issues and clients panicking and clients really sort of, worrying too much about the external side of things. And we had the privilege of just you showing us some sort of things you're working on at Fred Perry and how you're dealing with that. And when we read the literature you gave us, I was really impressed with how, you really internalized those external issues, but didn't let it affect sort of your general goals and really where you want to position Fred Perry, going forward into 2021. Could you talk a little bit about that?
So we've got some basic gold dust we have in our business, and actually what we've seen is over the last few years that there is a growing change in consumer behaviour, which actually takes people closer to us rather than further away. So this idea of brands that stand for something, brands that have a purpose and a heritage or have a message or values that people can coalesce around becomes increasingly important to some parts of the customer base. We generally, there's a couple of things we've always talked about. We always talk about there's two ends of a scale, and there's emotion at one end and there's value at the other. We can never compete at value, but we can always compete on emotion, because the only reason why you buy one of these is because the emotional connection you have to that. So the emotion end of our business is where we have to be. And there's other sort of simple rules that we just talk around in terms of you can either be vinyl or you can be Spotify, but never be anything in the middle. So you can either have a digital experience or a very visceral, real experience when you touch, you feel, you hold the garments. And underpinning all of that is some very simple economic, financial rigor. There's certain things that we know are real triggers to our business. Even our head of design knows exactly the gross margin we have to work at to be a profitable business. So there's sort of 5 golden rules that we stick to. But I think underpinning everything is this idea of holding onto our brand equity above everything else, because that's the bit that enables us to grow, to tell the stories, etc. So that the idea of always being niche, always being aspirational is vital to what we do.
What I think is really interesting about this is with a brand with so much heritage like Fred Perry, you've got a lot of story to work with already. So in terms of brand equity, that sort of value in the brand amongst all the stakeholders, customers, designers, the product, you can build. You've got a lot to build on, and that puts you in a fortunate position. But obviously, last year hasn't been easy for any retail brand or any fashion company, because obviously retail sales would have had a bit of a downturn in the short term. Things probably have picked up a bit, but how do you not get stuck looking at the outside things and panicking and sort of throwing everything in the air in pure chaos? How do you sort of keep the focus?
Well, one of the things that fundamentally makes us a long-term sustainable business is the ownership structure. As in, we've been owned by the same Japanese family for 27 years. So there's a Japanese culture mentality to business, which is about long-term. It's about maintaining. It's about not growing too quickly. So we have a track record of doing this for many, many years. We also have the fortunate position of I was around at Fred in 2008, 2009, 2010, and so were some of the other senior members of the team. So although it's not as enormous as the fight that we're in at the moment, and the impact is not the same, we have been around the track once before with something similar, and we learned an awful lot from that. So there is a benefit to experience. There's a benefit to saying, well, actually the business model still holds true, and so a lot of the things that we did in 2008, 2009 were somewhat counterintuitive to the market, but they worked. So, we actually, things like investing more into the brand. We actually, in some cases, put our prices up, even though people were saying, well, you need to continue to discount. We enhanced our distribution. We narrowed our distribution. We became more niche in terms of our aspiration. And over the years, every time we've become more generalized, and every time we've seen that lack of focus from a pure brand perspective, is when the number has started to move and drift. So what we found in a digital world, the more Fred Perry we are, the better we do.
Yeah, because obviously, more and more of your sales and revenue is going to be online. So being able to sort of position your brand online as well, and actually make the Fred Perry story bigger, more purposeful. That's only going to really help that side of the business. Whereas obviously, physical sales at the moment are really hard to do because obviously shops are shut and people are not around as much. So
yes, I mean, to a certain degree, but you also got to remember that because although we're only we're a relatively small business, we are a global business. So in that regard, we've got 110 stores in Asia. So yes, we have to make sure that the digital storytelling is correct, but we also need to make the physical storytelling correct in our own, well, not our own stores, but our partners' direct-to-consumer stores. So those 100 stores in Asia, most of them are trading. Japan is trading okay. Some of the Southeast Asian markets are doing all right, and China is +10. So we still need to make sure that the storytelling and the brand experience and the consumer and the customer experience is the same as what they may feel online. We always talk about, if you land into one of our shops, it needs to feel like landing on the website simultaneously. So that storytelling is coherent and consistent wherever you are in the world.
Interesting. Now, obviously, Fred Perry does end-to-end fashion. So it obviously is it's designing its products, it's selling them at the retail end through partners or directly on its own website, and it's also involved in the manufacturing process with quality control and testing and batch testing and so forth. Obviously, we'll go through some of these sort of external issues, and obviously the European Union UK free trade deal just came through, and obviously there was a lot of uncertainty beforehand. I just want to give a quick flavour on sort of the kind of things you had to do to prepare for that. And obviously, you've had the benefit of resources that other companies have not. Yeah. But actually, keeping it simple, by the sounds of it, from what I've seen from your stuff, seems to be the sort of the key to getting it right.
Yeah, I mean, well, fundamentally, there is no free trade deal for Fred Perry. It doesn't. It's less than 15% of our turnover, because the majority of our goods are made in Asia, predominantly China, have been for 20 odd years. Or Vietnam. So the trade deal does not exist for us. So the simple answer was that just over a year ago, we decided to get ahead of the issue. And I didn't really have any real confidence in there being a deal worth having for us. So we started the process of opening our own warehouse over in Europe. Now, we have actually a global sort of what you call hub and spokes solution anyway. We have a warehouse in the USA for North America. We have a warehouse in Hong Kong, and the rest of it was fulfilled from the UK. So we put a fourth warehouse into Tiel in the Netherlands at no insignificant cost. But again, we had the benefit of being able to take that longer term view with our owners. So of a business of our size, small to medium sized business, the absolute cost of our business this year of setting up that warehouse is £2 million. So it's significant. But the alternative was taking the risk of then having to pay the duty of all of our turnover going into Europe, which would have been well in excess of 2 million. The longer term view enables us to have a better e-com proposition now we're in Europe, in terms of delivery times, in terms of free returns for all of our European customers. It enables us to get closer to some of our wholesale customers, and it saves money for our distributors because they don't have to come over the channel to pick up the goods and then bring them back into Europe. So there was numerous examples of why this was going to be the right thing to do. And it was the right thing to do in many respects, with or without Brexit. But Brexit just made us actually just get ahead of the problem and address it and get it fixed. Now, the warehouse is operating now. The website doesn't flip over to the end of this month. And so within our planning, we just assumed we were going to take a hit on duty for 1 month of this year of all EU exports via our web sales into Europe. All of our wholesale is just going straight from the European distribution centre. It has meant that we have less people now employed in the DHL site that we use in the UK. It has meant that there's less investment gone into the UK. And I think that's sometimes what people are missing is there's companies like us who are actually taking investment out of the UK because it's the only way to deal with the supply chain issues we have. We have seen some disruption. Even before Christmas, there was all the trucks were getting stuck. Irrespective of what the French did in terms of the COVID situation, even before then, the trucks were getting stuck because everybody was trying to get their goods into Europe. So we had to take some views on margin and fly goods to customers, etc. None of which is particularly environmentally friendly, but we had to get the goods to them.
Back to how you were able to sort of look at the external issues and deal with them. So obviously, Brexit was a very proactive investment decision. Mm-hmm. With climate change being sort of becoming hot on the agenda, and obviously fashion having a rep, particularly fast fashion, obviously, which isn't Harry's game, but fast fashion being sort of environmentally unfriendly. Mm-hmm. It would be good to talk about your shirts actually, because you're looking to open a new shirt line, and actually that's a really good example, I think, for clients to understand of how you've taken the climate change issue, but actually galvanizing it into your sort of business development strategy for Fred Perry.
Right. Okay. So we have the Fred Perry shirt at the moment. Everybody knows and recognises that. There's one that's made in the UK and there's one that's made in China. But what we're trying to do in 2022, it's our 70th anniversary as a brand. So as a way to look forward as a brand, what we've started to do is reimagine the Fred Perry shirt as a sustainable proposition. Insofar as that we are now part of the BCI Cotton Initiative, which is not organic cotton, it's a sustainable way of producing cotton. And we're well onto our target. Over 50% of everything we make is now using BCI cotton. The idea of the Fred Perry shirt is 100% BCI cotton, and that every single component of the shirt is using recycled or sustainable materials. Now, we have one thread, which is the Madeira thread, which is the bit that sews it all together, which we haven't got to just yet. But even all the buttons, the tipping, the rest of the embroidery is all recycled polyester. So we've got a way of trying to look forward. We then starting to strip out all of the non-recyclable plastic in our business. We think there's at least 50 more tons to take out, and we're working. We're on this journey of then saying, well, then what about the packaging? What about the boxes? How do we transport it? And again, we fly less than 5% of our goods, so we spend an awful lot of time trying to get our goods on time via shipping, and we're continuing to roll that process out throughout the business. We've now started to work with 3D printing instead of sending laths backwards and forwards in our footwear, which has been incredibly effective. And I think the important thing for us is to be clear with our fans and with our consumers that this is a journey that we're on. We're in the process of opening a community part of our website, which talks into all the work we're doing, whether it's be supporting different charities within the UK, and we can talk about that later on. But primarily, it's to sort of express where we are on that journey, and the fundamentals are: look, we're not perfect, and we've got this far, and we want to go further. But we're trying to. I think the best brands. I think one of the other guest presenters talked about greenwashing. I think that's a huge problem within retail in general. But what we're trying to do is say, this is where we source, this is how we go about it. Our Modern Slavery Act talks into quite detail about our long-term partnerships. And what we're going to be doing is publishing every factory that we deal with, so people can see it on the website. That may be a risk in terms of competitive advantage, but I think there's this idea of being open and honest with our own consumer, because the market we're in now, people are demanding that more and more. And they want to feel that the brand is living to the values that they also live to, especially this Generation Z. They certainly want us to stand for something and to have some rigor in how we source. Now, we go back into tier 3, tier 4 sourcing. We know where the buttons come from, we know where the yarns have come from, we know what the dye houses are, we know if the dye houses are ethical. And that's the journey that I think a lot of brands will struggle with in terms of the big businesses of the outsourced parts of their business. But essentially, the idea of the community part of our website is to say, this is where we are. We want to go further, but at least we're trying to be honest and open of, no, this isn't perfect, but it's a journey.
It's fantastic.
The other big part of our business, which I think is that we're sustainable in many ways, in that we don't overproduce, and we constantly try to make sure that our goods are sold at full price as much as possible. We resist discounting as much as possible. And one of you talk about delivering all of these ethical and sustainable procedures whilst continually discounting at 20% and making 20 or 30% more than they need to. So we try to sell out at all times, and we try and sell out at full price at all times. And that's a brand decision, because it means that the brand is always slightly scarce. We would rather sell out than have too much. Yeah. And that's, again, one of the fundamentals of our business. As the MD of the business, my owners task me on a limited day's worth of stock at any time in our business, to make sure that we're never flooding the market, we're never relying on discounts to drive it. So there's various ways that the sustainability piece comes through, but this idea of not overproducing, I think, is one that many people miss.
We've talked through some of those sort of big things you've decided to do. Obviously, you've got a good set of resources at your disposal to do quite deep supply chain auditing, to obviously putting in a full fulfillment system for the European Union market. However, there are things that sort of transcend size with businesses, and I would just my last question to you really is to sort of give some sort of give our clients and other business owners that are on this call just some 5 or 6 things that you think that every business owner should be looking at when these big challenges are presented to them.
So I think there's a few fundamentals that I would always encourage people to look at. And first and foremost, I think for a lot of small businesses, find your niche and go deeper and go deeper and go deeper. There's a lot of people who get tempted into generalizing at the point where the business gets tough. And I think actually the opposite is true in a digital world. There are businesses out there who can give you everything you want at any time. Amazon is the prime example. But a niche point of view, a niche service, something that sets you apart from everybody else, I think is for small businesses is huge. I would urge everybody never to compromise on price, and I would focus on product and the quality of product, and if you can, research and development more than anything else right now. There will be certain golden little nuggets that make your financial model work, and make sure everybody knows that, and make sure that's consistent through your business. And I think the one thing that certainly I've noticed over the last couple of years, 2 or 3 years, is more and more you have to bring supply chain and operations to the heart of your business. In the past, it was very much like a third arm that sat detached or slightly outside of the hub of the business. The route and the way to get to market is ever more important than it's ever been before. And I think that is something that too many people either outsource or they don't understand enough. So stay niche, don't discount, focus on our research and development and developing the product ever more, bring your supply chain to the heart, and just make sure you know the nuggets that really tip your financial model into profitability, because there'll be 2 or 3 that surprise you every time.
Richard Gilmore, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.